Okay. Thanks everybody for introducing yourself and coming in. If I haven't met, again, Alyssa, I'm volunteer coordinator. I'm also a peer support specialist. So I joined the team here in July of 2022. And I started off in social media and communications. And I started here when I was 6 months into my own recovery. And as life shifted, I felt a real connection to the people here. And it felt like where I needed to put my time and energy. So I became a peer support specialist, went full time. And so what that means is I use my lived experience with substance use disorder and mental health challenges to be able to empathize with people, understand where they're coming from, let them know they're not alone in that feeling. And like Maggie said, like introduce the element of hope. We here support so many different pathways to recovery. So when appropriate, I can share what worked for me, but my job is to let people know what options are out there and help them choose what is best for them and help contribute to this community. Okay, so now we're ready to dive in here. We have a training agenda on the first page. We'll start, we got through our introductions, we have some goals, the Recovery Cafe Network model, membership and activities, mission and guiding principles, stigma reducing language. Then we'll stop for a lunch break. We have Shiba Hut coming in. Yeah. Then we're going to work on our elevator pitches for the cafe, daily guidelines, a trauma-informed approach, ambassador actions, de-escalation, healthy boundaries, and self-care. These are our training goals. What I want to point out right now is person-first language. So I also wanted to say I appreciate how everybody in here came from such different backgrounds. A lot of us have connections to people with mental health challenges and substance use disorder. And we're in a time now of shifting language in order to steer away from that stigma. And there's certain wording that people associate with like a negative connotation or not. So I'll give you one example now. Rather than saying my son or daughter is an addict, my son or daughter happens to struggle with substance use disorder. So that's a big motivation for me putting this together. And yeah, we're going to dive right into all of those other training goals. Minimize this. So if you're not familiar with the network, we are part of this network model, which started in 2016. There was a cafe in Seattle, and the co-founders had a lot of success with how that worked. And so these cafes started popping up all around the States and Canada. So now there are 65 cafes across the network. We opened up here in 2019. So we'll be celebrating our 5-year anniversary this year, which is exciting. And so we abide by the guidelines of the network model. And these are the types of social support that came from their model, which is evidence-based for helping people in recovery of all kinds. So here on the first page, I'll start with reading the key to our model is the firm belief that every person is in need of recovery from something, and having chosen the recovery journey has wisdom to share with others. This belief is the grounding on which we've built our recovery programming. So emotional, we demonstrate empathy, care, and concern to building a person's self-esteem. This is where we go right now. Informational, we share knowledge and information to provide life and or vocational training. Instrumental is providing concrete assistance to help people accomplish tasks. Affiliational is facilitating contacts with other people to promote learning of social skills, create community, and instill a sense of belonging. So while we provide these social supports, our model is also committed to incorporating and aligning programming with the 10 SAMHSA identified components of successful recovery programs. These are self-direction, individualized and person-centered, empowerment, holistic, non-linear, and that means recovery is like this. We have peaks and valleys. It's not a solid growth. We're strength-based, offer peer support, respect, responsibility, and hope. So now we'll get into cafe membership and activities. Without looking at our paper here, can anybody tell me our requirements for membership?
Any recovery circle attendance and not missing any that without letting the organization know.
Yes. So that's one. So we ask our members to attend a weekly recovery circle. We have them on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We ask that they let us know if they can't make it, and if they miss 3 circles without letting anyone know, we go over a new member introduction with them, and that's how we keep accountability. So that's one requirement. Second requirement is to be substance-free while in the cafe. 3 is to contribute by helping maintain the physical space and to create a culture of healing and unconditional love. So the first part of that is what you see us do in the beginning of the day when we make our announcements. We list off all the tasks that need to be finished by the end of the day, and members will volunteer to help with that. And then also contribute to the healing of this place in our recovery circles by providing feedback, strength-based feedback when appropriate. And the last one is to abide by our guiding principles, which we'll get to here. So who qualifies for membership? This is anyone and everyone. Since we believe everyone is in recovery from something, we believe anyone can be a member here. The main difference between members and volunteers is that members have the extra support of a weekly recovery circle and one-on-one peer support. So if you find yourself in your own recovery needing more support than you get as a volunteer, you can switch to membership status and join a circle. What we do provide for our ambassadors of hospitality is a once-a-month ambassadors circle. That's the Tuesday 10 a.m. meeting. And so that's where you all get to connect and talk about your successes, challenges as a volunteer here, maybe outside of your life or outside of volunteering. And so to become a member, it's pretty easy. If somebody is interested in finding out what we do and how to be a member, we invite them to join us in the cafe any day during open hours. Get connected with a peer support specialist, maybe sit in on a circle and see if it's a good fit for them. And then one of the staff members will take them through a new member introduction. Okay, cafe activities. We have a daily meal every day we're open. Tuesday through Thursday, we are open 11 to 3, so we do lunch at 12:30. We have a recovery circle twice a week. And this is where members share about how their week is going, a success, a challenge, and a goal. Members get to know the participants of the group on a deeper level, and they have the opportunity to give and receive feedback if desired. School for recovery classes, they help us build recovery capital. So anything that gives people the chance to learn new skills and hobbies and create an environment of connection. These school for recovery classes are open to the public, so volunteers are welcome to join. Some examples of that we have going on now is a weekly meditation, art. We do a TED Talk and discussion on Thursdays, yoga and Acu-Detox on Fridays. And as most of you know, open mic night once a month, and that is also open to the public. We also have some outside meetings that are held here. So as we try to hold up all the pathways to recovery, we offer our space to different recovery support groups. Some examples of that are we have an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, Crystal Meth Anonymous meeting, Smart Recovery, and they are their own entity and we offer our space to them. So here's our mission: to be a community of refuge and healing for people in recovery. These are our guiding principles. Do I have a volunteer to read those? We read those every day we're open. Dar, will you read them? Our guiding principles.
Connect with divine love in ourselves and others, show respect, practice forgiveness, encourage growth, and give back.
Thanks, Taylor. So does anybody have examples of how these principles serve as boundaries for behavior of members or volunteers? Yeah, an example of.
Well, I think it holds people accountable. And instead of being, enabled to do things, they're being helped. So I don't know if I have a specific example of it, but I do know that a lot of people that I have seen here, members, have connected with each other. And I think it's kind of the same thing with some of the ambassadors, where we've managed to connect with a few individuals on our own too, which helps in our own recovery or our own situation.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, something, practice forgiveness as a staff and show respect. We hold them together, right? So like, if you are in here, we ask you to be respectful of others. And if you mess up and are not respectful, we practice forgiveness. And so there's always a balance of these things, and it helps us enforce our boundaries because these are on the wall all throughout the cafe. And I appreciate the balance because people mess up sometimes. Life is hard and there's always a path to move forward. Okay. Dar.
Yeah, I feel like to connect with divine love, everybody needs love. And I remember a time when a man came down here and he was all upset and he had someplace he had to go. So he headed toward the door, and that man needed divine love. So I said to him, I says, whatever his name, I don't remember, but I said to him, I says, can you give me a hug, or will you give me a hug? And his whole face started shining, and he came over and gave me the biggest hug. It's not I initiated the hug towards him, have him do it to me. And therefore, I'm sure he had a better day that day. So just to connect with people like that, you know.
Great example.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, so on page 3, it starts the conversation of words matter and stigma reducing language. I can't spend all of the time that I'd like to on this topic, but in the PDF that I emailed to everybody, it has a link to an article that gives more in-depth information. Also, we'll be having a presentation here done by Becky. She used to work here. She was a volunteer coordinator. She works in harm reduction, and she wants to have a presentation all about working with people who use substances or have a mental illness. So getting into that, stigmatizing language assigns negative labels, stereotypes, and judgment to certain groups of people. This language can contribute to personal, public, and structural discrimination, social isolation, reduced self-esteem, and less likelihood to seek help. Language can reflect subconscious biases, and it can help or harm people with stigmatized conditions, including substance use disorder. So a recent nationwide survey found describing people as drug addicts versus having a substance use disorder led to more stigmatized views among respondents. So that's really important when we have people, for example, in the healthcare system, that use the correct language that is empowering to people. Like someone with a substance use disorder gets past the idea that they are a person, they are not the disorder, and that gives room for growth, and it's something that we can recover in from. And so if anyone really is like calling people, other people addicts, that is internalized, and you know, it goes all the way up to like structural discrimination. There are programs which we identify ourselves. Like I'm a member of 12-step program, so in that meeting, it's been the social norm to introduce myself. I'm Alyssa, I'm an addict. And that's okay. That's, for me, can be like a source of empowerment, because yes, I am an addict and I'm so much more than that. But to stay safe, you never refer to someone else. You can let someone else define themselves. Do you have a question?
Well, I went to a presentation on suicide, and they also were talking about that you don't say someone committed suicide. You say, what was the alternative?
Died by suicide.
Died by suicide.
Yeah.
Or something that takes it away from an active action.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I have a few more examples on here. So we already talked about this first one, addict versus person with substance use disorder. So clean and sober, using clean versus dirty, whether you're talking about like someone's sobriety or like a urine analysis sample, you would say they're substance free, or for like substance testing, you would say they tested positive for the substance or negative, rather, because obviously clean and dirty has a certain connotation there. And when it comes to any mental health diagnosis, you wouldn't refer to someone with schizophrenia as a schizophrenic, because that kind of like makes it their whole person. More examples that are in this packet. Homeless person, instead of saying that, we would say a person that's living unhoused. So this question here is to ask, is it even relevant to bring up what this person's diagnosis is? For example, if I had a friend with autism, I've been hearing this recently. Somebody had been referring to them as their autistic friend. And it's like that, I don't need to know that they have autism, you know, so it's really rare in your role as a volunteer here that you would need to refer to anyone in combination with their diagnosis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So using person first language is humanizing, characterizing them as someone who happens to have a certain condition rather than reducing them down to their condition. Okay.
Alyssa,
Yes.
is it all right to wonder what a person's condition is, or to ask one of you staff members privately?
Yeah, let's go back to that. So privately is the key word. I don't think it would be appropriate for us to share that with you. There would be certain circumstances, maybe not any that I can think of. Like if somebody gave us that information and in a private setting, it wouldn't be appropriate for any of us to share it with you. The only example I could think of is like if somebody needed a certain medication and they couldn't get their medication, maybe to that extent. Otherwise, I don't think so.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Any other?
Typically, it's not apparent what people are in recovery from. Mostly I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, we've created such a space safe that people will self-identify. And I think that happens because they're looking for some sort of connection. So if somebody is self-identifying, a good validating point there is like, thanks for telling me that. I'm like, I'm sorry, that must be really hard. And it opens up context for us to get to know people with all different backgrounds, recovery stories, and that's really productive in reducing stigma too. Hold on, Lisa?
Well, this did happen to me too, and I just want to make sure I was okay with it. In that I was at a grocery store and the person and I connected because we both realized we recognized each other. That person was not entirely sure where they knew me from, and so I started running down a paid church work. And then I just said cafe, and that's when it hit, because I didn't want other people to hear, oh, recovery cafe. I was in a grocery store, and that seems to be okay.
That's
asking?
perfect what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, so in general, when we talk about confidentiality, if I saw like a member here outside of the cafe, I wouldn't approach them unless they approached me. I would never say, oh, you know me from Recovery Cafe. I like what you used, cafe, because it's not.
Because, I mean, we made eye contact, so it
Yeah.
was obvious that
Sure.
we knew each other from somewhere, and,
Yeah.
okay.
And I've heard of that happening before, and people not wanting to disclose where they know them from. And so if you
Sure.
feel bad in the moment that you didn't, go say hi to them, when you see them here the next time, you can always explain like, I want to protect your confidentiality. So if I didn't seem warm and, whatever, that's why.
So I'm kind of wondering how one opens up a dialogue with people. I'm a person who doesn't like to pry, and but making a connection with somebody requires that you kind of find out about their situation.
Yeah, we'll
And
get there.
so that's one of the things that I'm hoping we'll cover in this training.
Yeah, we have a part for that. Marcia.
The only time that I really know that somebody has something is when they have a life-threatening or a medical issue, seizures. I first, I need to know if this person has seizures and that's what's going on. Or right now I'm dealing with some diabetics that aren't being very careful about where the insulin is. And if they start to, fold, I need the knowledge about, is it 911 or do I get a glass of water?
Great point.
Been in that situation more than once, it really is helpful to know this person is working against some, or this person has seizures.
Yeah.
And then I get trained on how to best support them.
Yeah. So that's a great example when it comes to a medical necessity, which we don't see a lot of. And of course, it's not on our volunteers to like adhere to a medical necessity. Okay, we have some time. Do we have any other questions about anything we've covered up to this point? Maggie.
I was just gonna make a comment. I have found over the years, Longmont's a really small town. I used to be a peer support specialist in Longmont. And also I'm in the recovery community. And so I see people everywhere. And, I think Lisa's segue is really good. It's just, or even people, because I'm in AA, and they come up to me and then I can just say different buzzwords. And a lot of times that really, is a connection. And then I can just say to them, wow, nice to see you. Have a great rest of your day, and not necessarily engage them in conversation, because sometimes people stop you and want to talk. And then it's like, I can say I'll be somewhere or whatever. And I found that to be really valuable.
Awesome.
Because I'm acknowledging them, and at the same time, I'm not going to get into a lot of
So we are going to stop for a break. I think our lunch is almost here.
It's here.
It's here. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to stop the recording on Zoom for this next half hour.
You want to tell them to come back 1:15?
1:15. Sound good, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. In progress. Okay, so slide 7, page 4. We're gonna work on developing an elevator pitch. So this is for your outside life. You know, if anybody asks you where you volunteer, you want to be able to let them know who we are, what we do, who we serve. We have a pretty unique model going on here, so it's not always easy to put that into a 3 to 5 minute pitch, but we're gonna workshop that together. And then this will also be really helpful for when new members come in and they're like, what is this place? What do you do? We want to look at what we say. So the first part of that, we covered person first language. So it's really important as ambassadors of the cafe that we use respectful language. I know a really common one that I hear is people say they help people in addiction. And that is, 1, not the best language, and 2, a big understatement of what we do. So we help people in recovery from all things. Some examples are substance use disorder, mental health challenges, trauma, grief, and I always follow that up with, we believe that everyone is in recovery from something. So I have in this packet a little example of what I tend to say, and it usually prompts enough questions for that person to get enough understanding. So my example is Recovery Cafe Longmont is a nonprofit organization that specializes in community building for people in recovery. We host peer-led recovery circles, school for recovery classes, open mic nights, and other activities. So you all know what those things are, but who you're talking to might not understand what those are. So I would pause to talk about what a recovery circle is, what a school for recovery class is, or open mic night. And I always emphasize that our primary approach to recovery is connection and helping people build community connection. All of our services are free, peer-led, and person-centered. Person-centered might not be a word that everybody understands immediately. So to me, that means every person that comes in here has a different background, a different history, a different recovery challenge. And we respect all of those pathways to recovery. So we don't push any singular pathway. Do we have any questions? Okay, so we are going to break out into some groups.
Good.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I heard come up that I didn't prompt is we're not a drop-in center. That's a good one. I like to say we're more than a drop-in center. To encourage accountability and like sustained recovery, we ask everybody that comes in to check us out and then become a member in order to like deepen our reach with everybody that we interact with.
I don't remember if we're recording.
We're recording.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks. Okay.
Elizabeth, I
Yes.
have a question for you. So it often comes up, when I'm talking about the cafe, people say, oh, is it like the, AA or 12-step program? How do you answer that when people ask you that?
Okay. So the question was, if people ask if it's like AA or is it AA, how do you answer the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do hear that sometimes. So I say, no, we're not affiliated with AA. We do happen to provide our space for an AA meeting. We're a space that is all centered around community building. We have our own unique recovery support circle, and that is not allied or affiliated with AA or any of the other 12-step or other programs. I think people make that connection because AA has a foundation of like peer support, like led by, and you could always touch on, it's not just people who deal with alcohol, it's people that deal with all recovery challenges. Any other questions? Okay. I'm gonna keep moving forward. That went by a lot faster than I thought. I planned to be done at 2. We might go over. If you have to leave at 2, that's okay. Daily guidelines. So in page 4, it'll be page 4 to 5. This is going to break down what we do throughout the day for the different shifts. Something that I've included in here is cleanup. I'm all turned around in my section. Okay, page 4 to 5. So for all ambassadors, this is for everyone, no matter what time you come. We ask that you arrive at the assigned time, sign in on our list when you first come in the door. It sits on one of these stools. One second. We'll collect name tags. So those are something I have, but I don't always put them out. So if you don't see them out there, just let me know and I'll put them out. We'll always demonstrate radical hospitality, welcoming, inclusive language. We're all experts in that now. If you're not, keep reading. Joy, love, interest. And so within the first hour, Tuesday through Thursday, 11 to 12, it's really just open community time. And so an easy way to kind of dip the toes into chatting with people, a puzzle is a good thing to do. You can play a game, or you can just sit and chat and offer snacks. And you can also build community by getting to know the other ambassadors. I'll put a caveat there too, to make sure you're not only interacting with other ambassadors, but like introducing them to new members and vice versa, and trying to make the members feel included. So I'm going to skip over this breakdown of the hours, the 11 a.m. to 1, 1 to 3. I've put some information in the kitchen on how to run our dishwasher. So if that's something that you want to contribute, it helps the peer support specialists because it's a lot for us to be with people and be in the kitchen and, you know. So if you're interested in doing that, then your next shift, let one of us know and we'll walk you through how to run the dishwasher.
Okay.
Lisa?
On behalf of the building, please do not use the garbage disposal.
Thank you.
Put everything in the compost. I mean, it's okay if you rinse a dish in there and you get some small things in there, but no big, our system here can't handle it.
Yeah, we'll walk you through all
Yeah.
of those details. Jen, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just that if I sign up for 11 to 1, are you wanting me to arrive at 10:30?
So if you plan to come and help set up with coffee, 10:30 is great. That's about how long it takes for the coffee to be ready. We are always here at least an hour before we open. So if you're not able to make 10:30, that's okay. And so I just want to like put this out there. It's optional to help with the extra upkeep. We appreciate it, but it's not part of your role. What I like want for all of you is to be able to connect with people. Okay. So for new members, we will greet them at the door, help them sign in. If it's their first time, we ask them to fill out a guest form, and it's always underneath that sign-in sheet. It's a half sheet. And then hand it to one of the peers, or they can hand it to us when they're done. Fill out a guest form, get a name tag. You can show them where the coffee, water, and snacks are, provide a little tour of the cafe, show them where the bathrooms are. That's where I always forget to let people know. And that's when you can pitch your elevator speech that you all just worked so hard on. You can invite them to sit with you over a puzzle or not, a game or not, or just sit and talk. And if this happens before we start our announcements, meditation, and lunchtime, just let them know that's going to happen. At 12, we're going to have 5 minutes of silence and announcements. So let's pause our conversation and we'll pick back up over lunch. When lunch arrives, one of us will put it in the oven to keep it warm. If it's here early, we'll let the volunteers know when it's time to serve lunch. And so what I've been seeing recently, it can get kind of crowded in the kitchen. Our rule is that it should only be staff and volunteers in the kitchen. And what I don't want to happen is to have this like othering feel of members, like they can be in the kitchen and I can't. So in your own style, in your own way, be like, you sit down, we're good in the kitchen. What else? Okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You don't want us letting people in the door though, correct?
Good question. Correct. So when the doorbell rings, a staff person will go to the door, just for safety reasons. Sure.
Should an ambassador introduce themselves as a volunteer or ambassador to a person who comes in and we don't know?
You can, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so the question was, should you introduce yourself as a volunteer? Yeah, you can, it's up to you. Or what I see more frequently is just people introduce themselves as their name. And that creates this feeling of like, you can't really tell if they're an ambassador or a member, and we're all just.
You'll be able to tell.
No, the name tags will only have your name.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a blank name tag. We just do first names.
Good.
For that reason, because we don't want any, hierarchy or whatnot. Any other questions?
Well, up till now, we haven't been able to serve or do anything in the kitchen because you said that it was just staff that was serving the meals and getting things prepared. So now you're saying we can, right? We can.
Yeah, you have always been allowed to do that. It was during COVID. That might be
okay.
why there was a confusion. So during COVID, it was only staff in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So yeah, volunteers and staff can go help meals. You can ask a staff person, like, where am I the most helpful?
Yeah. Okay.
So for established members, same thing, we'll greet and check in. How's your week going? How have you been since I saw you? And if there's a new person that comes in, it's encouraged to ask an established member to help you give the tour and sit with you. That's how we start to build community. Hey, do you know this person, and this person? You know a lot about the cafe. Can you give them a rundown? Okay. And I will get further into kind of like ambassador actions as well. So that's just a brief overview. Next, we're going to talk about the trauma-informed approach. So this is it starts on page 5 in the packet. And the information that I have in here comes from SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. And yes, they use incorrect language in this federal program. It should be SUMSA, S-U-M, substance use. Okay, so adopting a trauma-informed approach is not accomplished through any singular particular technique or checklist. It requires constant attention, caring awareness, sensitivity, and possibly a cultural change at an organizational level. People who have lived experience with trauma may have a hard time regulating their emotions in certain situations. It's important for the ambassador to stay calm and focused. If you feel uncomfortable, contact a staff member to assist you. Be mindful of both your language and the language of others. Before it can trigger others. If someone's describing a story that could be triggering, tactfully and politely redirect. So an example for that is if that main space where we all are casually hanging out is not the best place for traumatic re-storytelling, or a big one is politics and religion. So this is the one place that people can come into and be separated from the nonstop, like divisive language around politics and religion that is out there. And especially with us being in a church, that in its own can be a barrier for some people that have had experiences. So as ambassadors, definitely never speak to your opinions on any political or religious matters in light of like keeping people together. We find like what unites us, right? And so members will bring up politics here and there, and there's always like it's a learned process of being able to redirect a conversation, and the peers will always be around. We are pretty good at that. And if we're not around and you're getting uncomfortable with what's being spoken about, please let us know. It's been rare that we've had to like really directly ask someone to stop sharing their political opinion. And so, yeah, if anything is feeling really triggering, trauma-induced, political or religious, something that I do is like, hey, what do you think about this event that's coming up? We have a billboard over here with all these events. Yeah, there's an art to it that I don't know how to put words to at the moment. Does anybody have any examples of how they've steered and redirected language?
Alyssa?
Yeah.
It's Steve. Not really an example, but a dilemma. Since we are in the basement of the church I go to, and when I have been in the cafe and someone has said appropriately that they don't like organized religion mostly because of the way they've been treated by that church, I wonder what it's like upstairs. That kind of comment.
Yeah.
What's the appropriate thing to say about what it's like upstairs? Because what I know is true is our congregation is trying so hard to be welcoming to everybody, and that's different than some other churches. So what's the best way of handling that situation when someone gets a little emotional about their bad experience with organized religion?
I'll start, and then Maggie had her hand up. So I think the key part of the specific situation you brought up is that that person asked what the church is like upstairs, and you have experience with that church. And to a very limited extent, like, explain your experience and remind people that Recovery Cafe does not have a religious affiliation. And so I'm sorry you had that experience with the church. This was my experience with the church upstairs. The good thing about what we do here is that religion doesn't have to be a part of it. Maggie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think first is a validation of where they're at, you know, and also I always like to start questions with an I'm curious. Because sometimes that could just help them, draw them out a little bit more to see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know? And it's also an opportunity that maybe for me to know where to steer the conversation.
Sure.
With them. But first just validate whatever they're.
Yeah. Yeah. And so another thing I'll say about that, Steve, if somebody just came in talking about how they've had bad religious experiences, and they weren't asking further questions, I, again, would just validate their experience. I'm sorry that happened to you. And then what we do, and we'll get here in motivational interviewing, is like, what would you have liked to be different? Or what is helping you in your recovery? Does that answer your question?
Good, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, Dar?
Yeah, I got in a conversation with somebody on, about, Martin Luther King
Okay.
and, what's his name, Billy Graham? And we were conversing and we were just talking about not necessarily politics or religion, just historical.
Yeah.
And another person didn't like that,
Hmm.
so we had to quit the conversation. But it's really picky. I mean, it's like, how do you differentiate? I mean, if people come in here and they say, I go to church or my church does this, or, you know, or I'm this or I'm that. I mean, that's permitted, right? I mean,
Yeah, good point. So there can be a fine line with history, right? And then when we start bringing our opinion into history, that's politics. And for you to say that you're a member of a church is totally fine. I don't know if it's always relevant to bring that up. Something that's come up is like, I don't want to generalize, but what I've heard is, especially with like Christian religion, there's kind of a privilege there. And so like when that one specific religion is talked about openly with the assumption that everyone is a Christian, then other people start to feel like they don't belong. And so my recommendation is that I don't think it's necessary for you to let people know what church you belong to. Is that fair? But if it comes up, it comes up, and there's all different contexts.
right.
Okay. Good. So we're gonna go back into trauma-informed approach. Number one is safety and stability. So members who feel physically, what? Oh, hello. Can somebody? Wait. Sorry, that echo will get to me. Okay, members who feel physically and psychologically safe are more likely to engage. This may take time. This probably will take time. Ambassadors can help build a sense of safety by respecting boundaries, respecting confidentiality, and giving space when needed. And so here are some signs that someone might be uncomfortable. They might be a sign, they might not. So quickly changing the subject. So, right, if a subject's making you uncomfortable, you're going to change the subject. So if someone does that while you're talking, we follow their lead. Stressful breathing patterns. We tend to like breathe in our chest instead of our stomach when we're stressed. A shift of body language. So when I'm sitting like this with my shoulders square to you, like I'm engaged in the conversation. But if I turn my shoulders and I cross my legs, this is a body language of like trying to shut off. Lack of eye contact can be just what someone's used to, or it can be a signal that they're uncomfortable. So what to do? Change the subject, open or continue the discussion at a slower, gentler pace. So I think this comes back to what you were saying, Jenny, about the feeling of not wanting to pry, but wanting to get to know someone at a deep level. And what we have to accept is that a lot of people take a long time to get there. And so there's certain questions like that are seemingly like that are lighthearted, like where are you from? What made you come here, things like that. And you can gauge by how the person responds to you. If they're turning away from you, not making eye contact, trying to change the subject, then we back off, or we change the subject ourselves. Okay. So humor is always a good one. If you feel like someone is like anxious and uncomfortable, you know, that's your style, your individual humor style. To lighten the tone, use open body language and calm breathing. We tend to like echo people's body language and breathing. So if you keep that in mind, like you get to model that this is a safe place, like there's no need to be in the stress response. And respecting personal space. So some people generally gather in this area when there's not an activity going on. And some people just need space and they'll come over here. And sometimes people will come over here, and do want to engage, but they don't know how to, and they're more comfortable over here. So again, coming over to introducing yourself, engaging their response. Again, it's a learned practice, and none of us ever get it perfect. But I think a little effort goes a long way. Just like, letting the person know that you're here to engage when they want to, but you're not going to invade their personal space and their boundaries. And sometimes life's uncomfortable. Often these moments are fleeting and don't require much investment from you, but other times you'll need to proactively work to keep the conversation moving forward. These uncomfortable moments can turn into opportunities to build rapport and connection. Okay, that was a lot for safety and stability. Let's go to trustworthiness and transparency. Members should know that what is said will be held in confidence. If you don't know the answer to a question or understand what someone is getting at, be transparent about that and turn to a peer support specialist for help. And peer support is part of this trauma-informed approach. So individuals that have a shared experience and a trauma-informed approach are integral to a person feeling understood. So something I like to do if somebody really opens up to me about something I know nothing about, I'll ask them questions. Like, I'm curious what that felt like for you, or like how that's showed up in other parts of your life. Like, I haven't had that experience, but I know this person has. Maybe not another member. Careful there. So we're not breaking member confidentiality, but let's say you're a volunteer speaking with a member, and they don't know where to go in recovery for substance use disorder. And if you don't have an experience with that, you're like, that's really hard. I don't know much about that, but I know our peer support specialists do. Collaboration and mutuality is the recognition that healing happens in community with shared decision making. So our staff, volunteers, and members all work together to contribute to keeping this place going, programming decisions, and upkeep of the physical space. Empowerment and choice in regards to the trauma-informed approach. This is the recognition of the need for an approach that honors the individual's dignity. So we recognize, we build upon, and we validate people's strengths. This includes a belief of resilience and the ability to heal from trauma. So this is staying optimistic, respecting people's individual choices, building upon their strengths. The last part is cultural, historic, and gender issues can compact trauma. So somebody who also deals with the stigma of being a minority, and has faced biases, stereotypes, and systematic oppression. It's important that, again, we meet them with curiosity, we recognize their struggles, and we address wherever appropriate. The Recovery Cafe staff right now is doing a diversity, equity, and inclusion training in a way that will be trained facilitators to open these conversations with anybody who wants to have them. So yeah, keep asking questions on that one. Okay. Now we're going to talk about ambassador action. So this is turning all of these principles into things that we can do. So you're sitting down with someone you just met and they have a lot to say, maybe, or not. Active listening. So there used to be all of these videos about how to make it look like you're listening, like eye contact, head nodding, and you're trying to remember all of this and you're not hearing what the person's saying. So if you're actually listening, you don't have to learn how to make it look like you're listening. But typically when we make eye contact, we nod our head. I think it's a natural thing. Validating is a good one. So, wow, that's awesome that you accomplished that. Oh, that is a really hard thing to go through. Reflecting, so kind of repeating back to someone what they just said in order to make sure you're understanding what they're saying, and that helps people feel heard and understood. not interrupting is important. Empowerment. So the way we do this is call attention to the positive qualities of their character and handling of a situation. I see this happen inside and outside of recovery circles. When people are talking about like the biggest thing going on in their life right now and how it feels like they just keep messing up or life keeps like knocking them down. I think in our community, somehow it's a natural thing that we do. We're like, you handled that so well. And like, you came back here today is a good one. Like you have all that going on and you're here, like good for you for taking care of yourself. And so that's what empowerment is. And like, people are like, oh, wow, I didn't realize like I am handling this well. Motivational interviewing. So this is similar to empowerment, what I just said. So drawing out the member's strengths and their ideas rather than imposing your own. And so I'd like to call Virginia. Do you have time for 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do a little motivational interviewing real quick. So Virginia will be the member and I'll be the peer. What's going on, Virginia?
You know, I just feel like I'm drinking too much and I really want to cut down. I don't want to stop, but I just want to cut down. But I went to AA and it just didn't feel right to me. And it just feels like I don't belong there. And they say I have to go to all these meetings and I don't really have the time for it. So I don't know what to do.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like a lot, and making this decision to cut down on drinking is a lot. Am I right? So you don't have a desire to stop drinking altogether, is that right?
I don't think I need to.
Okay. Okay, so what would your goal be? Like how many times a week would you like to cut back on your drinking?
Well, let's say maybe I only drink on weekends so
Okay.
that it doesn't impact my work.
Good. That's a good goal. Do you feel like that's accessible for you? Would you have trouble stopping yourself?
It feels like it. Like I feel like I have this idea that I'm going to stop, but then Monday afternoon comes around and it's hard to then stick to that decision.
I get that. So when that Monday afternoon rolls around, like what's something that you could do instead of, like right before you go to the bar or go to the store? Is there someone you could call, or what can you do instead?
Well, I guess I could take my dog for a walk.
Nice. I bet he'd love that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's a really good plan. And is there anything else that you tend to use instead of drinking, like other activities, I mean?
You know, I think if I keep my hands busy, then maybe sometimes that helps. So maybe if I worked on a puzzle or, you know, finally got around to learning guitar or something like that, maybe that would do it.
Yeah, that's great. That's been really helpful for me in my recovery too, like building something or creating something. And so here at the cafe, we have an art day totally dedicated to art. We always have guitars and puzzles and things to pick up. So I would encourage you to come on by when you get the urge to drink, but you don't want to. There's other things to do.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Virginia. I think we're
So
using
simple, huh?
Virginia, but thank you so much for all your help.
Of course.
Okay.
It's called
We
the
have-
version.
What?
It's called the version.
The version? Oh, okay. Got it. Any questions about motivational interviewing? So what I was careful to do in that, so I'm an AA girl and I like it worked for me, but I realized that it doesn't work for everyone. So what I was sure to do was not try to push her into something she didn't already like. And what I could have continued to do is like, if you're interested in meetings, there's other recovery support meetings. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. And I
So
have,
there's
go ahead.
there's no chance, is there, that they're gonna open up to us as volunteers? Is it, I mean,
Yeah,
there is?
I see it happen.
Okay,
Yeah,
so do I send them to you? Do I
whatever
say,
you feel most comfortable with.
okay,
I've seen people open up to you a lot. And I like your personal approach of like, trying to understand and validating and like asking questions about who that person is and where they came from, and that's really helpful. And then if like in that case, if they were asking you about a specific recovery program that you didn't know much about,
Yeah.
just let them know and be like, ask Alyssa or ask Chris or Christina.
Okay, because I feel like for me personally, because I haven't had to go that route, not having had to, but haven't gone that route myself, it's like, okay, how can I say the right things at the right time, without being untrue to myself or the person?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
I think I hear of course we all want to say the right thing.
yeah.
But going back to what we just talked about with transparency, Margaret, would you mind getting the door? Thank you. Sorry. Transparency and honesty. Like I don't know much about that. I would love to learn more. I'm happy to learn with you. Is a good one.
That I could do.
Cool. Yeah, we can all do that. Okay. So right here I have, remember we are not here to fix others. Oops. The harm reduction approach compassionately affirms that it's difficult to give up all behaviors or coping skills at once. We're concerned with empowering the small victories, like Virginia's, like cutting down to just the weekends. That's a victory. That's harm reduction. High expectations can be dangerous and overwhelming. So this next section in the packet on page 7, cafe conversation, this is going to go really deeply into practices, philosophies. So I'm going to encourage you all to read that on your own. It has some do's and don'ts. Pay attention, withhold judgment, reflect, clarify, summarize. Quickly, I'll touch on de-escalation. So we stay calm, non-threatening, situationally aware. I don't have it today, but I'll get you all our map of the basement here and where exit routes are. The takeaways from this is that all of our staff is well trained in de-escalation, and we have role played it a lot. Like luckily these situations don't arise, but we role play it in the case that they do. And so in here, there's certain things you can do. Maybe it doesn't mean you should or should feel like you have to, but to prevent a situation from starting, we can validate the person's experience. That sounds really hard. Acknowledge their resilience, redirect their focus. And so that's at the very start of a situation escalating. Like if somebody is just really angry about something, or not really angry, but starting to get up there, we can redirect them to a puzzle or a different conversation. Always remain calm in body language and voice, and don't match the person's intensity. So when in doubt, even if you see something that might start to dial up, but you're not sure if it will, let us know. If we're usually on the floor, but if we're not, just say, hey, I noticed this person seems a little bit uncomfortable. I think we should just keep an eye to make sure it does not escalate. And so in the rare case that if somebody was escalated and we needed to get them out of here, it's important that the staff has space to work. And when somebody is feeling like really angry, when everybody's eyes are on them, that's going to escalate the situation more. So it's important as volunteers in that situation, the staff will handle the issue, and the volunteers' job is to like keep the other members engaged. I know it's hard, but like try to draw attention away from that. And then this has never happened before, but if it did get to like a dangerous situation where we needed to get everybody else out, we would go up those stairs, and there's doors right here. And so one staff person and whoever was volunteering would help everybody be like, hey, we're gonna go out the back door and take a walk. And then we have contexts at CORE, which is a diversion of the Longmont law enforcement. So if it's just a situation of someone who is maybe under the influence or having a mental health crisis, they'll send out security and like a mental health professional. So it's not like a police situation that might escalate it more. Yeah. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say about that for now. And now we're gonna talk about boundaries. So we always want to refrain from giving contact information to people. And if it comes up, you can just say, yeah, actually I'm a volunteer here and I'm not allowed to give out my contact information. We'll be aware of the impact of touch and appearance. Oh, and also money. It's not something that happens. People don't really ever ask for money. I've never seen it. What I have seen is somebody talk about like needing to get home to Boulder or something and they need $1 more for the bus. And that can be a really easy thing to be, oh my God, I have $1, you can have $1, but we really discourage that because maybe it's that person or maybe it's somebody else in the room who just had a door open. This person will give money to someone who asks. Let's be mindful of clothes or accessories that are revealing, promote alcohol, drug, or tobacco use, or express political or religious views in order to avoid barriers to building safe, authentic, and appropriate relationships with cafe members. Don't touch a member or their possessions without asking. I thought it was really nice how Dar shared that story and she asked that person if they needed a hug. Communicate questions, concerns, or discomforting situations with staff. So if anything makes you feel uncomfortable at all, like let us know immediately what happened. Okay, that's all I've got on that. Now we're going to talk about self-care. So has anybody ever heard of compassion fatigue? Yeah, okay, cool. So this is a definition that I found for it is the cost of caring for others' emotional pain resulting from the desire to help relieve the suffering of others. And so not every day, but a lot of days it can weigh pretty heavy when people have so many obstacles that can like seem insurmountable, and like what we do here isn't addressing directly someone finding housing or someone being food secure. We can provide resources for that, but we're never going to fix someone's whole life in a day. And I've had it. I've left this place sometimes feeling like I didn't make enough of a difference. And this is like a concept that's taught in human service fields, and a lot of, they call it like compassion burnout too. Like a lot of people that work in social work get burnt out pretty quickly. And so what they recommend for that is to see what your impact is, because what we do here is really simple, but we make people feel seen and heard and like they have a place to go and they're not alone in all of these struggles. And that is a lot. Because some people that come in here have been isolated for months or years at a time. And just like making that human connection, I think is like a primal instinct of ours. And a lot of people don't have that at all. So just knowing that like what you do is important. And I try to reflect on my day at the end of the day. Like, did I make eye contact and feel like I really understood someone today? Check, like, that's good. And I'm going to take that and run with it rather than I couldn't solve this person's whole life. Okay. So these are some of my practices of self-care, and then I'll open it up. Gratitude for our humanity. Like I just said, like, I hope you all congratulate yourself for taking time out of your life, this like 2+ hours today even, to show people kindness, grace, and compassion. This world needs people like you. Mindful moments. So self-care is not just something you do in your spare time or on vacation. It's a disposition, an attitude, or an ongoing state. In practicing mindfulness, we take time each day to shift from a mode of doing and action to one of pausing and being with whatever is happening right now. So as you sit, stand, or move, notice your feelings and thoughts and the bodily sensations as they come and go. Like right now, I feel like I've been talking a mile a minute and my heart's kind of beating fast, but like I'm grounded in my chair, I'm surrounded by amazing people. And so I try to like stop a few times a day to like realize where I am and get my nervous system in check. Create whatever you find with an attitude of openness, curiosity, and compassion. Single focus tasking might not be, this might just be a me thing, but multitasking may have become the norm in today's world, but it's probably a better practice for computers than it is humans. See what happens when you bring your attention fully to one experience or activity at a time. So this is what we do here. And it's like, it's kind of like a sigh of relief when you show up and you just get to be with someone and be present in that moment. Social support is really important for me too. The relationships you have with family, friends, and colleagues are a vital source of nurturance and comfort. They foster a sense of belonging and shared commonality on one hand, and acknowledgement and validation for your uniqueness on the other. In studies of resilience and recovery, individuals who go on to succeed and thrive in life in the face of tremendous odds are people who have received significant doses of social support along the way and have learned how to ask for and initiate it when needed. So that says a lot about the importance of the work we do. Like by us providing social support, that significantly increases somebody's resilience and like this evidence that when we open up and we ask for help, people will be there for us. That intrinsically motivated activities are the things we engage in for our own happiness rather than to receive an external reward. These activities recenter and refuel us. Some of mine are snowboarding, painting, reading, snuggling with my dog, and going on hikes. What are some of yours? Raise a hand. Jenny.
Listening to music.
Awesome. Yeah, nice. Dancing, love it.
I'm sorry, mine's so random that I just sit and watch TV.
That's great.
Particularly Law and Order SVU,
Yeah,
so
nice.
relax. It is, because it's mindless.
Okay, that is all I have for you today. Thank you for being in it for the long haul.
Well done. Very well.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you. Bye, everybody on Zoom. I'm gonna.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Oh, my God.